This episode is brought to you by Marqeta. When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit marqeta.com/Spotify to learn more.
Once upon a mundane morning, Barb's day got busy without warning. A realtor in need of an open house sign. No, 50 of them, and designed before 9.
My head hurts.
Any mighty tools to help with his plight?
Aha!
Barb made her move. She opened Canva and got in the groove.
Bulk creating Canva sheets. Create 50 signs fit for suburban streets.
Done in a click, all complete.
Sweet!
Now, imagine what your dreams can become when you put imagination to work at canva.com.
Find the biggest voices in sport on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like Big Kick Energy with me, Maisie Adam.
And me, Susie Ruffle.
Each week we bring you the latest from the world of women's football. Whether you're a lifelong fan like me,
or a newer fan like me and have recently got swept up in the Lioness excitement,
we've got everything you need to know about the women's game.
Search Big Kick Energy and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to another Howie the podcast, and you join us as we're navigating through our third international window of the season after only 11 games. And as annoying as that is, it does, however, give us the chance to catch up on all aspects of Sunderland AFC and to talk to a few people who know their stuff. And today we're speaking to someone who we haven't caught up with since the chaos that was July, when he was stalking every possible transport hub across the northeast, waiting for the next wonder kid from Europe or experienced international that was about to join Sunderland next, which means we're very pleased to have the Sky Sports News northeast reporter, Keith Downie. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Chris. How you doing? Thank you for having me. A lot has happened. A lot has happened since we last spoke, but I'm sure you're pretty happy with what has been happening.
Yeah, absolutely. You ask a Sunderland fan at the minute, you know, how they're doing, and there's only one answer. But I was going to say, I mean, you know, is this international break giving you a chance just to take a breath?
Yeah, do you know, it's a strange one because you asked me that question in any previous year, and I hate the international breaks. I hate them. They just kind of get in the way. No one likes a weekend without any domestic football on. But I have to say, with everything that's going on in the northeast at the moment at both Sunderland and Newcastle, and how busy I've been right through the summer, I feel like I've not had a break. So the last international break and this one have both come at really welcome time. And it's strange when you're as busy as this. It's actually quite nice just to have a little circuit breaker. And look, it's great. It's all good stuff that's happening. It's fun. It's fun to be a part of. It's great to see the start that Sunderland have made. And you know, while Newcastle haven't had as good a start, anywhere near as good a start, there's problems there in terms of their Premier League situation. They've obviously got the Champions League, which they're doing well in. So, you know, in many different ways, the Northeast is thriving at the moment. And I think it's been shown more than anything by the players that have been attracted here in the summer, you know, to see the calibre of player that Sunderland have signed. And everyone said for a long time how difficult it is to attract players to the Northeast. But yeah, look at the players that you've signed here, and, you know, Newcastle have signed big as well. So yeah, look, to answer your question, it's nice to have a little break. I'm sure the action will be back around before I've got a chance to catch breath.
Yeah, well, we're talking about little breaks. Like I said, we last spoke to you in July, and we were very privileged to be able to get a bit of your time because you were being pulled here, there and everywhere. Were you just glad when all that was all over?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Alexander, I mean, I know you guys, I'm not on this to talk about Newcastle, but the Alexander Isak transfer saga just dominated my summer. And it wasn't just the Isak story, that was big enough. It was all the little different strands that were associated with that. You know, if Newcastle had got Isak, they would have then gone for Ekitike. That didn't happen. We know what happened. They then went for Sesko. That didn't happen. They then went for Strand Larsen. That didn't happen. And then eventually they tried to get Whistle, which went on for 6-7 weeks itself. And then eventually they got Voltemada over the line and then Whistle with seconds to spare. So look, that transfer and all the associated strands absolutely consumed my summer. I was honestly physically and mentally broken by the end of it. I think I did more than 240 lives on Sky Sports News just regarding that story alone. So I was done in. I had a little bit of a mini breakdown in the last week. And then what didn't help was the night before deadline day, it was one of my best friend's weddings down in Wynyard Hall. So I was there the night before deadline day, and then woke up in the morning to a deluge of messages from people saying Sunderland were being active, they were getting a couple of players in, the Isak thing's done, and it just summed it all up that I'd been there for every single itch and scratch, certainly of the Isak story. And then when it eventually went through late on the night before deadline day, I was about 10 pints deep at a wedding, so I kind of missed the money shot at the end of it. But then, as I say, I woke up on deadline day. You guys were very active. Newcastle, the Wissa deal looked like it was going to happen after having, the day before he'd put a statement out saying, he was desperate for it to happen. And looked like it wasn't going to happen. And then, of course, the Isak deal went through with hours to spare. The Wissa deal with seconds to spare, really. And then, you guys brought in Gertruda, Brobbey, and Traore, I think, all on deadline day. And it just kind of summed up the whole window. So yeah, it was mental. It really was mental. But I have to say, it was really enjoyable to be part of. And I think, the Newcastle situation wasn't good for them. But I think your transfer window, I mean, that must have been beyond your wildest dreams. What you managed to do in that window. And it was thoroughly enjoyable to cover. And I remember speaking to Christian Speakman way back at the end of May. I had a little sort of off the record chat, and I said to him, look, are you expecting to break your You've just signed Enzo Liffi as per the terms of his contract. Once you gain promotion, that's now it's broken your transfer record. The Didi and Dong one that had been there for a number of years. Are you expecting to do that again? He goes, yeah, we might do it once or twice. Like, we're going to have to bring in a few players. And then, look, while you didn't keep breaking it time and time again, you obviously smashed it with the signing of Diarra, and then just brought in player after player after player. And it really was a joy to see that level of player deciding that they can come to the Northeast and they can get everything that they want in terms of their football and ambitions. And I think the bravery in the transfer window by the recruitment team at Sunderland has been reflected in the early performances and results. And look, let's be honest, you're taking the Premier League by storm.
Yeah, well, that's it. But actually, just on that, because we spoke to you obviously in the thick of the action during the transfer window, and we're speaking now in retrospect. But that we're talking about the last minute deadline day deals with, as you've mentioned, and they were reacting to Guiu going back to Chelsea at the time. This might sound like a really silly question, but thinking about the John Nasumi deal that we tracked for a long, long time, and we thought we were going to get over the line at some point. An Everton reporter told us recently that we were apparently close to signing Decore during the summer. But all this other information that's gone on in the background. Do you think that's something if they could have? They would have actually signed more in the summer if they could have. Yeah,
look, I was told that at one stage towards the end of the window, the plan was to try and bring in 15. Okay, the plan was to bring in 15 players. So look, you stopped just short of that on 14. Obviously, there's a little bit of a grey area over the Guiu situation because he came and then left again. But I was made aware from a decent source that the plan, sort of halfway through the window, was if we've got a chance of staying up here, we need 15 new signings. So you almost got there, but look, I think you can be pretty pleased and proud with the 14 that you've added. But yeah, obviously the club kept that quiet at the start, and as I say, Christian Speakman was kind of alluding to the fact that you're going to bring in a few new players, you might break the transfer record a couple of times. And I thought, look, you're going to be strapping at the bottom. You're going to try and bring in sort of maybe 4 or 5 players, and you'll try and just stay up this season. But to see the transformation has been amazing, really, really to see. And I think also, and I think this is crucial, is that pretty much all of those players have made some kind of impact. There's probably only one or two that are still trying to find their feet, but you go right through those 14 players that have signed, and pretty much, the hit rate is very, very good, very high, and I think that really has to be commended, because you've managed to sign players who, there's a lot of athletes in that team, a lot of real physical specimens, and do you know what I like about it more than anything? A lot of really streetwise players. Like watching the game against Arsenal at the weekend there, and I thought that at the Villa game a few weeks earlier. Like, you've got real streetwise players who know how to see a game out, and I think that is absolutely crucial in the Premier League.
Yeah. We'll come back on to a little bit of that, but I was going to say, because I kind of sad enough to watch the press conferences most week, and we hear your voice putting the questions across to the manager. But when you're in and around the place behind the scenes, do you get a feeling of how good the atmosphere is behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's buoyant. It's absolutely buoyant. It's almost like a new club, and I don't say that lightly. It's you just even just walk. Do you know what I did on? Do you know what I did on Monday before the Everton game? I got there early. I was doing lives from 4, I think. I got there about 3, and I was like, I'm just gonna have a wander around here. I'm just gonna have a wander around, like, the stadium, like round the back corridors, right round. Did a like sort of 360 right round the concourse, looking at all the, everywhere's been spruced up and painted, and it just felt like everyone there who was there early is just enjoying. And I'm talking about people who are like cleaning, and people who are serving up the food in the press room, serving up drinks in the concourse area and things like that. It's like everyone, and that's what happens when results are good. It has a knock-on effect to the rest of the workforce, and I see that round about the training ground as well. I mean, one thing I've really noticed at the training ground is there's a lot more people there. There's a lot more staff, certainly from last season and the previous sort of 5-6 seasons before that. There were certain rooms which weren't being used before, and they were just kind of lying empty. They're now being used. They've got, there's academy coaches in there, or there's analysts in a certain other room that was just lying empty, and there is a real feel good factor about the place, and that goes without saying. When you're getting results on the pitch like you are, and I think it's because it's been so so much of a surprise. It must have caught you guys as fans as surprise as well. No, but you must be pinching yourself. You could never have imagined you've sat here in the November international break, fourth in the table. It's incredible. But yeah, I do sense a real feel good factor about the place. I think from the top though, including the sporting director, the director of football, the manager, I think they're all just trying to keep a lid on things. The owner as well. They're trying to keep a lid on things because they know things can change quite quickly. But I have to say, from what I've seen so far, I don't see it changing. I honestly see you having a really, really good season, and I think you've got the right players there to allow you to do that. And the noises that I'm hearing, and we've heard from Kyril Louis-Dreyfus, didn't we, when he spoke on Sky Sports last week? The plan would be to spend again in January if things aren't going too well. So it feels like everyone's pulling in the right direction, and it's certainly a huge change in terms of the approach of the club from what we've seen over the last couple of years, where I think it'd be fair to say you've been pretty stringent. Now you're trying to make the most of the opportunity you've got to ensure that you're a Premier League club to stay.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, just on the manager, like I said, we hear your voice trying to squeeze the information out of the manager during the press conferences. But it does feel like there's a bit of a game of a cat and mouse going on between the press and Regis Le Bris. I mean, are the kind of nationals and things getting used to our manager not giving anything away, and are they just getting used to kind of how he answers things and how to kind of phrase questions because he very rarely gives anything away.
Yeah, look, he's not. Let's be honest. He's not a character who's going to light up a room for the national media. They're not going to come in here, and he's not going to be rent a quote. He's not going to be giving you loads of great stuff. You're right. He keeps much of it private, and he kind of uses the same words, the same sort of 4 or 5 words that he's got again and again to describe a multitude of different sort of situations. look, I honestly, I would prefer it if it was a little bit more open at times. He gave us a little bit more. I did a 1-to-1 with him on Friday, and I have to say he was more relaxed in the 1-to-1. I think he's quite good for the papers, because I think when you write down his quotes, you're like, oh, sometimes he's actually said a few decent things here. I just don't think he's for television, because he's so cool and he's calm and he's collected. We kind of like it when people get a little bit feisty, and you just can't see him doing that. And look, I think that kind of coolness has been reflected in the displays of his football team. But we heard what the owner said last Monday on Monday Night Football, when he said he's never seen a manager. He said he's been blown away by just the level of detail that he goes into, and it sounds like it's on a different level. And for him to put a team together, 14 new signings at times. I think in a couple of games you had 9 new signings in the starting lineup, and to get the results you have, it just shows you. You hear a lot of managers these days saying, look, we're trying to build a team. It takes a while to bed them in. The players need to get used to the style. Well, that's not the case at Sunderland, because every single one of them has just bought into it straight away and hit the ground running. So, look, kudos to the recruitment team. Kudos to the manager, who clearly is on board with the recruitment team, because, he's playing all these players. It's not like he's been given players that he doesn't fancy. He clearly likes these players. And I like him. He's a kind of guy, he tries to inject a little bit of humour in now and again. But yeah, you're right. He doesn't give us too much. And it can probably be a little bit frustrating on a national level, because you're obviously trying to sell, your club that you cover on a national level, and you're like, we just sometimes you just need him, just give us a little joke here, or kind of get a bit angry with me, something like that. But he's just too cool and calm to be taken down that road.
Yeah. I mean, just quickly on that kind of the togetherness of this squad, because like you said, 13, 14 signings, whatever it was in the end. And, it's against the backdrop of all of the players who got us into the Premier League stepping back almost. You've got your Dan Ballard, of course, stepping up to the Premier League. Isidore's done well. Che Hume, of course. But apart from that, everybody else has taken a back seat. And you have to balance all these new players coming in, getting to know each other, versus that old guard who got you to the position you're in. And to balance all that up and come out of it with the seemingly the team spirit we've got when you see it on the pitch, you've got to kind of tip your hat to them by doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I watched, it was the Everton game, I think, on Monday night. I was just kind of looking pitch side, just down from a sort of observer seat. And as the players all came off, I was watching Luke O'Nien and Dan Neil stood there like shaking every one of their hands. And you're like, look, these guys have just taken it really well. And, I think probably for O'Nien, he would have probably expected it a bit more than Neil. I mean, I would have expected Neil to have featured more than what he has. Especially when we know that other Premier League clubs have been interested in signing him, and over the last few years. So it's not as if he's not got the capabilities to play there, but clearly the manager feels that there's something that isn't quite there yet, or something that he can get more from with his other players, and that's why he's not really been involved. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with his situation with him out of contract at the end of the season. It doesn't sound like they're any closer to agreeing a new contract, so perhaps Dan might decide it's time to move on. It'll be interesting to see what January brings with that. But you're totally right in what you say there. When you think of the overhaul of not just the squad, but the starting 11 and all these guys who got you there, and so many of them have kind of been pushed out to the sidelines. But you're right, there doesn't appear outwardly to be any animosity from these guys, and I think that shows you the type of character that Sunderland had there. They've got or still have there. You've got players and individuals there who have got the club at their heart, and the club are the priority. And I have to say, the way it's been managed from the top has been incredible. Look, these guys will have had pay rises as well. Don't get me wrong. So they'll have been rewarded as well, but they still want to play football every week. I mean, as much as Luke O'Nien's loving this, he'll still back himself that when he gets an opportunity, and if he gets an opportunity during the AFCON, he'll think he can come in and take his chance. And it's amazing to see. I could never have predicted it going as well as it has, both on the pitch and off the pitch, with the relations of existing players. but everyone involved has to take a huge amount of praise for the way they've done it, and long may it continue.
Yeah, that's it. I forget there's probably a couple of thousand reasons why it kind of makes it slightly easier for them, but still, I'm sure they want to be on the pitch, like you said.
Yeah.
But like nobody, even the most optimistic fan, wouldn't have predicted being the Champions League place after 11 games. But they do say when teams are promoted, it's so important for them to be strong at home, and of course we're unbeaten in the first 6. And you've touched on games that you've been to. Have you been impressed at how Sunderland, as a club, not just the team, but as a club, have built up every game into almost a huge event in its own right to make sure that it's a intimidating place to come?
Yeah, you've just taken the words out of my mouth there, and I've been saying that to anyone who's willing to listen. I was saying that to some of my colleagues down in London. I said, it feels very much like every game is an occasion. It's like an individual. It's not just, we've got another game, 3:00 on Saturday. Here we are. We're back again. It could be Preston, it could be Watford, it could be Stoke, right? The games all just kind of merged into one another in the Championship. And, it's probably difficult to remember individual games, but you're totally right in what you say. Every game is an event. I mean, look, the Premier League is like that anyway, but I think Sunderland have taken it to another level with just the build-up, the atmosphere. I mean, the roof nearly came off the place, I felt, on Saturday night there when you equalised, when Brian Brobby scored with the last kick of the ball, the noise and also the noise when Dan Ballard scored. I had a couple of colleagues, a couple of friends actually in there doing some filming behind the scenes for a new video that's going to come out ahead of the January transfer window. It's kind of what would you call it? It's almost just trying to show Sunderland, like what the club are and what it's like behind the scenes. And I think the original one that they did, and my voice was in it, it was almost like a recruitment video to try and attract players. I think this one's more for like supporters and things. But anyway, they were doing a bit of filming behind the scene. My friend came up to me before and said, we need like the Dan Ballard goal against Coventry in the playoff. We need that noise. We need that. Like we can use some of the scenes from that game, but the scoreboard's different and it doesn't look right now. It'll kind of jar a little. We just need. And I'm like, do you know what, mate? You'll do well. As much as the atmosphere is amazing now, you'll do well to recreate that noise again, because that was just like incredible that night. You'll do really, really well to. And then there we are. How many minutes into the game, Ballard scores again down the other end, and I actually think it was probably even a louder noise than it was that night against Coventry. It was just incredible. And you're right, it's every game is like an event, an occasion, and you've got the whole week to build up to it, which I think is great. I think with the teams who are in the Champions League at the moment, or even in the Europa League, they've got all these additional games during the week, and sometimes it just becomes a bit like there's too many games. Whereas I think with you guys, you've got the build up over the week. You're all looking forward to the weekend, whether the game's on the Sunday, the Saturday night, Monday night football. There's just such a build up to it. And everything that's going on within the stadium, the guys who arrange all the flag displays, the PA system, the place just looking better, the way the tunnel is now, everything about it is just, it looks a Premier League club, and then it's reflected by the performances and the results on the pitch. And I said it earlier, but I'll say it again: the physicality and the sort of will to win and the streetwise element of that team, for me, is one of the main reasons you're getting results. And I've said this a few times now. I have to say I've been saying it since the Aston Villa game. I don't see too many teams coming to the stadium of light this season and winning. Look, I think there'll be a couple of games where a big team comes and they'll turn you over and you're maybe not at it. You get them. There'll be a couple of 3-0 defeats in there. But I just don't think it'll happen too many times. I honestly don't see too many teams beating you this season. And like you say, if your home form is good, then you're safe, aren't you? If you can win the majority of your home games, you're going to be safe. And I think you're going to be more than safe this season.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. This Monday night, witness the end of an era. John Cena takes center stage for his final appearance ever on Monday Night Raw. One last match, one unforgettable farewell. Come celebrate the legacy of a true WWE legend. Monday Night Raw, November 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix. Be there for the moment everyone will be talking about.
Hey there, it's Dr. Sanjay Gupta with some exciting news to share. CNN is now streaming. That means you can read, watch, and stream everything in one subscription. You can watch news live 24/7. You can also explore catch-up videos and explainer videos, and you can also watch the library of CNN's originals, including my latest documentary, It Doesn't Have to Hurt. Just go to cnn.com/all access.
Find the biggest voices in sports on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like us, Under the Cosh.
What is Under the Cosh?
It's stories from behind the scenes, from the changing room, and it's raw, unfiltered, unsanitised, and straight from the horse's mouth.
From the good old days. And the new series is out now. Who've we got, John?
Matt Clattenburg.
Yes.
David Bentley. And many, many more.
So search Under the Cosh and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Yeah, well, just on that, you mentioned the home games, but and we talked about the manager, but looking at Sunderland away from home this season, and I think this is where Regis Le Bris really is earning. I mean, of course, being unbeaten at home, but he's really earning his money because away from home, we've seemingly got a different game plan for every away game, and we've got a very specific plan. He's rotated the squad out to kind of combat different things that opponents have got away from home. Do you think Regis Le Bris, whereas I think you were talking about that in the Championship, there's that churn of games and each game molds into one and he kind of just put the same system out, same teams. But do you think now we're actually seeing how good he is tactically?
Yeah, absolutely. And that little switch a few weeks ago against Chelsea to go to the back five, kind of back three, back five. But then if you actually watch the game, it's not just a back five because Trey Hume kind of steps into almost like a, inverted fullback, almost in a central midfield position at times and gets forward. And so if you actually look at it, sometimes you look and you're like, oh, it's a back five there. And then 5 minutes there, oh, they've gone to back four and Hume's in mid. And then it's back to back five again. And then you're on the attack and it's a back three. And it's so fluid, like it changes all the time. I've been very interested to see the change. I mean, I have to say I was really surprised and maybe a little bit disappointed, if I'm honest, that he kept the back five against Everton last Monday night. I just felt I thought it was the right thing to do against Chelsea. And look, you got a terrific result. I just feel at home against Everton, go with a back four, take the game to them. And look, and you just looked a bit unsure about yourself that first sort of half an hour or so, and you gave Everton the opportunity to come on and score, and they opened the scoring brilliantly through Elman and Dye, and he kept it. I was surprised. I was really surprised that he kind of stuck with that back five. I wasn't so surprised against Arsenal because I thought you got the draw against Everton, decent point. You'll do that against Arsenal. What I'll be really surprised to see is once Omar Aldereti's back, I wonder whether you then just go back to four again. It feels like since he's been out, that's coincided with the back five. Does the manager trust a back four of just Ballard and Mukiele as the two centre backs, or Gertruda and Ballard, or Gertruda and Mukiele? Does he feel that Aldereti has to be one of the two centre halves? The only natural left-sided one for a back four, and that's going to be really interesting to see. And when he does come back, would he maybe then see him in a back five? Is that what he's set on? I've got a feeling that when Aldereti comes back, and if he gets back in the team, you may see a return back to the back four again. It just seems strange to me that the moment he's dropped out is the moment he's gone to a back five. But then you look at it and you're like, how does he get back in? Because the defence have been playing. You can't drop Ballard. I mean, he was an absolute colossus on Saturday. Absolutely, an incredible display from him. I don't think you can drop Mukiele. He's been phenomenal as well. Gertruda, I know he's a bit of a utility player, can play in a number of positions, but he's done well. Terrific against Chelsea with the way he set up the goal, was involved in the winning goal for Talby, and it's great. It's great options for a manager to have when all the players are playing as well as this. But just going back to the original question, I've been really impressed by the way he's done it. I don't think you're going to score a whole lot of goals this season, So it's going to have to be built on strong foundations. But what I like about it is he's willing to switch it up depending what team you play. And a lot of managers in the Premier League are not like that.
Yeah, that's it. Well, looking at the start of the season, a lot was made about who we played. But do you think a lot of people missed the point in those games that we were still picking up points in the fact that Sunderland were picking up points in all of those games, but actually they were building up momentum that carried into the next lot of fixtures?
Yeah, I mean, look, the fixtures have been good to you. I remember when the fixtures were announced back in the summer, I was like, wow, that's a good start to the season. Like, that's the kind of thing where you're right, you can build up some momentum. But then on the flip side of that, if you went out there on the opening day of the season and lost against West Ham and then slipped up against Brentford, then suddenly you're really chasing your tail. So it can kind of be seen both ways. But look, I think the one that's changed it for most people is the Chelsea result, to go there, to win 2-1. Forgive me, were Sunderland 1-0 down? I think, were you 1-0 down?
Yes.
Yeah, 1-0 down. To come back and win 2-1 at Stamford Bridge and to score late like that, I think it's just made everyone sort of sit up and take note. But I mean, you're not scared of playing anyone out. And also, you went to Man United 2-0 down after half an hour, weren't playing well, switched to the back five, kept a clean sheet the rest of the game, and I think Regis learned something that day. And I think he thought, hang on, like these kind of bigger games, away games, I'm going to have to play the five at the back. And I like the fact that he's willing to learn. He's not just like, no, hang on, I'm playing a 4-2-3-1, that's me. Or I'm playing the 5-4-1, and he is willing to mix up. So I hope he does. I hope he doesn't stick to the back five for the rest of the season. I hope we see in certain games going back to the back four and taking it two teams. But yeah, I think the opening run of fixtures was kind. It's helped. And look, you've got some unbelievable fixtures coming up going into the Christmas spell. But the good thing is you put yourself in such a strong position now that it almost feels like there's not really pressure going into these games, if you know what I mean. Like, it almost feels as though you've got so many points on the board. Look, of course, you don't want to go and suddenly lose 3 or 4 in a row, but you've taken the pressure off now. So you can actually go into these games and you can just go in and do your thing and see what happens. And look, I think even if you lost against Arsenal, if you'd lost 2-1 the other night and you hadn't scored that last minute equaliser, the players still would have been applauded off the park because the supporters can see everything that everyone is putting into these performances. And I think that's such a good position to be in going into these huge games round about Christmas. You're obviously going to be losing a number of players to the African Cup of Nations. But to have those points on the board just takes the pressure off, and means that you can go into these games and do your bit without worrying that you're going to be marooned at the foot of the table.
Yeah, well, just on that topic of pressure, because look, if you look at when everything resumes, we've got Fulham away who've lost 5 out of the last 6, and then Bournemouth at home who've lost their last 2 games, and it's probably something we might have to get used to a little bit because we're just not used to it at this level. But actually, we probably go into those games as favourites to win. I mean, does that bring a different kind of pressure?
Yeah, probably. It's amazing, isn't it, to think that, like, where you've been over the last sort of 5-6 years, and suddenly you're favourite to beat these teams who've been in the Premier League for a long time. But yeah, it probably does. But do you know what? I don't actually think anyone at the club really cares. Like, I don't think anyone's too worried about that. Like, I don't think they're looking at it and saying, you know what, so what? Like, it doesn't matter. I think everyone's just enjoying the journey, and you're looking at Fulham away. That is a potential banana skin, because now the way you've started, you're right. Most outsiders are like, oh, Sunderland should go down there and beat them. But actually, if you go down there and get a point, that's a good result. That's a good result. Just keep it going. At home against Bournemouth, like I've seen Bournemouth against Newcastle last couple of seasons, turn them over a couple of times, and they're a really, really good team. They've got a top manager there, and that will be a difficult one. But you then look at it, away to Liverpool, away to Man City, and then of course you've got the derby, and then away to Brighton. So look, there are some really, really tough fixtures coming there. But I just think, and the players and manager don't need me to tell them, but they just need to embrace it, and I'm sure they will.
Yeah. Well, we've really pushed for time. So the last point, because you mentioned it, the derby looms large on the horizon.
Yeah.
It's a first league game against Newcastle at the Stadium Lights since October 2015.
Wow.
I assume it's penciled in on your schedule?
Yeah. So, well, actually, I do some work up in Scotland for all the cup finals and semi-finals, and it's the League Cup final that day. But I've already told them that there's no way I can be there. I need to be. There's somewhere else I need to be that day. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. There's a lot of football to be played between now and then. Things could change in any direction. I think it's going to be really difficult for Newcastle, and I've said this to any Newcastle fan I know, anyone who I've spoken to in the street, and I've been saying this since probably the Aston Villa game, the Sunderland Aston Villa game, that is going to be one of the toughest games of the season for Newcastle. Like, the atmosphere is just going to be a different level. You've got players there like, you look at Dan Ballard, for example. He was bullied by Alexander Isak, in the cup tie a couple of years ago. He's just a different specimen now, Ballard.
Yeah.
Obviously, Isak's gone from Newcastle. Newcastle's trying to find their feet. They're trying to find a different way of playing. They've got in Nick Voltemad, they've got a completely different sort of striker to Alexander Isak. And look, I think that's kind of being reflected in the results, particularly on the road. What I will say is, it probably won't feel like it will feel like an away game in terms of the atmosphere, but because they're just sort of 20 minutes down the road, it won't feel like they're not getting in a plane and travelling anywhere, and it'll probably just the mental aspect of an away game. It won't feel like that for Newcastle. And look, they know the Newcastle players know what it means to their fans. But I just think the sort of backing from the Sunderland fans, the kind of fortress, I would say, that the Stadium of Light is becoming, the record you've got already. I think it'll be so difficult for Newcastle to win that game. And I think if they were given the option of a point from that game, they'd probably take it. But then they've not seen what it's like at Sunderland, and they'll be exposed to that on that day, on the 14th of December. But yeah, it's going to be an absolute powder keg. I can't believe that's 10 years, since the last one. And what a one to come back. I mean, we all think of the one 2 years ago in the cup, but this is a completely different prospect. These, Sunderland have brought top class players this summer. Guys like Mukiele, Alderete, Paraguay international, Mukiele from PSG, of course Granit Xhaka, the man just holding everything together. Yeah, for me, he's not really that flashy. I hear a lot of people say, he's the best midfielder in the league. He's not. I mean, he puts in some brilliant whipped crosses, but for me, he does the simple things so well. And you can see he just orchestrates the team. And it's more than just kind of what he does. It's I spoke to Wilson Isidore a couple of weeks ago, and he said, like, the players are scared to make a mistake in training. If they make a misplaced pass, sorry, Granit, sorry. Like, he's just dragged the standards of the club up. But you look at some of those Sunderland players, and I look at him like, well, Xhaka, he would do a job for Newcastle right now. Really do a job. So would Mukiele. So would Alderete. So would the goalkeeper. And you're like, they've signed top quality players, and I think it's so hard to protect. The only thing I really would struggle to see, the way the both teams are playing at the moment, I'd struggle to see Newcastle winning that game. I have to say, and if I was them, I would be happy with a point. But it's certainly going to be an incredible occasion. And I'm sure you guys are absolutely, sort of licking your lips at the prospect.
Yeah. And like you said, there's a lot of football to be played between now and then, unfortunately. But unfortunately, we've run out of time for today. So that just leaves me to say it's been an absolute pleasure, Keith. Thank you very much for your time. And hopefully maybe catch up after the derby.
Yeah.
See how things go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't even remember when we spoke the last time where we were with the transfer window. I can't remember if the Xhaka deal had happened or where we were, but it's just... Yeah. It's honestly been a crazy few months, and I don't think anyone could have predicted it. And then to see the results following, I mean, I've got a couple of close mates who are Sunderland fans, and I know they're absolutely pinching themselves at what's happening at the moment. And it's amazing to see with football. You never know what's around the next corner, do you? And when things just suddenly start falling into place, and now you're in this position, and you're looking, you're up there in the higher echelons of the league, and just desperate for every game to come about. I think that's kind of made up for probably all those years down in League One and towards the bottom half of the Championship when you're probably sort of hating your life. So it's great to see, and it's brilliant for the Northeast as well. And yeah, so how many games? I'm just looking at how many games have we got until the final. We've got to the final.
4.
I'm calling it the final.
Yeah, well, feels like that. Yeah, 4 games. We've got the Fulham, Fulham, Bournemouth, and then Liverpool, Man City away,
Yeah.
which is see what momentum we've got.
Yeah, so you've got about 4. Newcastle have got about 8. So again, you'll come into fresher on the day, and it's going to be amazing to see what comes from that. But it's I just think at the moment it's just a joy to see Sunderland doing so well. And look forward to going to the next game and just seeing that place, the old stadium, absolutely not that old, is it? But see the place rocking again. It's a joy to watch at the moment, I have to say.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, will you enjoy a well-earned break during international break, Keith? And hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Brilliant. Cheers, Chris. Speak soon.
Good stuff. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Of course, we'll have everything during this international break, all the current news about Sunderland AFC, either on the Roker Report website or our daily releases on Away the Podcast. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Find the biggest voices in sports on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like Not the Top 20 podcast with me, George Elliott.
And me, Ali Maxwell.
Join us on our podcast about the best football leagues in the world, the EFL. Want football to be like it was back in the day? No VAR and so much drama. Search Not the Top 20 and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.